you have to accept acknowledging things before you can even start the process.
If you are someone who has a dream but feels stuck, if you are facing obstacles that seem overwhelming, or if you just need a dose of motivation to keep pushing forward, then you are in the right place. So buckle up, dreamers. Anchor Your Dreams is not just a podcast, it's a community of dreamers supporting dreamers, women supporting women. Subscribe, follow along, and let's navigate the seas of ambition together. Thank you for joining me on this adventure. Get ready to be inspired, motivated, and empowered. The journey begins now. Today, we are here with Kourtney Talkington, and she is a mindful eating advocate and speaker. So, Kourtney, I'd love to have you share more about your journey and what it's been like for you to get to where you are today.
So I live in rural Western Kansas in a very small, tight knit community, and I live on my family's farm. We are fifth generation, and my kids are sixth generation. We've been in the area about 100 years. And so a lot of not much change. And so I very much struggle with change. And so I feel like that fueled my story so much more was that I literally have been living in this house for 25 out of going to be the 29 years of my life. So just not a lot of change and staying in the same area. And so like that was a big obstacle for me. And also a lot of societal outside pressures of what was going on around me and growing up in a tight-knit community, which now as I'm older, I really appreciate because I love being able to go into town and be like, hello, hi to these certain people. Where if I didn't live here, I want to be able to connect with people as much. And that's just a big thing for me. Yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Thank you for sharing that. You do in We talked a little bit about some background. So you do bring up your roots in some of the notes, which I really want to touch on. So what does that mean to you when someone says going back to your roots? What does that mean to you? So if someone was listening, like for me, I also live in the same place that I was born in. So born and raised where I am. So I do understand a little bit about that. But it sounds to me like what roots mean to you might be a little bit different because your family has now been there for six generations. You're on number six for generations. So for you, that root system must feel so much different.
Honestly, when I was younger, it was very heavy. My family, so just to put in a bit of perspective, I was the fourth generation to graduate from the same high school, and my kids are in the same school system right now. So it was just very heavy that even with things that were going on in my life, that I felt like I couldn't leave, or that my big dreams, because I always just felt like I wanted to go out and chase these ridiculous things, that I felt like my roots were gonna hold me back, but honestly, like, that's, like, the root system and, like, where my values came from was my like, where I grew up and the people that were in it, and now that I'm older, I can better appreciate that, but when I was younger, that is not what I thought. I was like, "I need to get out of here to go achieve all these cool things that were so big and just felt so heavy, but so wonderful," and so that's kinda what roots mean to me. I feel like also through this journey, I've came back to things that I did as a child and enjoyed as a child that I kinda lost in motherhood because I was doing all these things for everyone else, and I guess I never really just focused on myself. I was doing everything that everybody else needed to do or needed me to do, and so as my journey has progressed, I have been able to find myself again, and it might not be the same exact thing, but it is something similar to it that brings me joy as an adult that I really enjoyed as a child.
I think there's definitely something to be said about bringing some of that inner child out as we are adults. We lose so much of that when whether it's chasing dreams that of being complete opposite of our generations before us. I know I definitely had that like, I'm getting out of here, like "I'm getting out of Dodge" is what the saying was, and I did. I left for almost 2 years, and then promptly came back because my husband also was born and raised here, and we both were like, "Are you ready to go back home?" We both were. So I do understand, and I had the same sort of thing, but I think too, that's been a bit of an internal conflict, not to like, I'll circle back here, but a bit of an internal conflict of having this wanting to broaden horizons when you're living in a small community and not necessarily wanting to relive your family's life and their way of doing things. And you do understand that there is a different way that it can be done. So you feel the sense that you need to leave, but then there's something that just pulls you back in. And there's this, yeah, like we live on some acreage that my husband grew up on and his grandparents. So really, I guess we're tech, yeah, not to get into a whole bunch of details, but we're basically like third generation, I guess. And our daughters are fourth. And we don't do a lot with the property, but we do have that sort of rural living. We raise chickens and pigs and that kind of thing. And it's really interesting that I'm talking to you today because the last few days I have, not just days, but like a little while, have felt this pull back more into the root system of where I am. That sort of not work the land, but work the land and kind of be more connected in that sense. And so when I was reading your notes and everything and the word roots and root system and community kind of kept cropping up, and I was like, this is definitely something that is valid for where things are at for me right now. So I'm just really curious, how do you stay connected? Like being someone that had these dreams and goals and everything when you were younger and feeling like your roots were going to hold you back. How do you feel now as an adult living where you grew up and your children and everything? How do you navigate that?
So I co so it first started I found out I was going to be a teen mom. I was 18 going to be 19, and so all of my plans changed. I had a full ride to college, thought I was gonna be doing one thing, and that is not what happened. But there was honestly power in that pause in my life because what I was going to do was similar to what I ended up doing, but different. So it was a completely different degree, and slowing down and taking the other path led me to kind of where I am now. And so there were these like pivotal moments in my journey that led me to where I am. So the first journey I would say that I went on that pushed the envelope just a little bit was I had recently got married to or at the time I'd recently got married to my husband, and I looked at him and I said, when I was in high school, I always really wanted to study abroad because I have always been so interested and intrigued by other cultures. And it just had always spoke to me. And I was always really connected with like food and trying new things. Like if we went places, I'd always be like, oh, I want to go try this really exotic thing. And my mom would be like, why? Why do you want to go do that? And so I looked at him and I said, I really want to study abroad. And so at that point, I had just started my 4-year university after graduating with my associates. I had a 4-year-old and a 15-month-old at the time when I told him this. And he was like, well, I guess if you can figure out a way, you can do it. And so I was technically a virtual student, and which my university is here in Kansas, but I live about 2 hours away, and I was like, "Okay, I'm calling the school and seeing if they allow virtual students to study abroad through the university." Because at that time, I was 23, so I was still a non-traditional student, but I was the same age as the students. So I called and they're like, "Well, we've never had a student study abroad before, but there shouldn't be a reason you can't." And I said, "Okay." So I put in my application to study abroad in Italy for 5 weeks, and I applied for a nationwide scholarship called the Gilman Scholarship, and thousands of people apply, and I ultimately got chosen for a $2,500 nationwide scholarship to go. And so my flight
Wow.
yeah, so my flight got paid for, and my husband's like, "Okay, see you later," for a month, and I studied abroad in Italy for a month, and that was a very pivotal point in my life because it led me to how I feel about food now and how I healed my own journey with body image and food really came from that trip because they just cherish things and look at things in a completely different way than we do here. And it opened my eyes just so much more than what I was getting at home. But like that's the experience I needed to like break that box and break away. But I can bring it back home and apply it to people and help people here. It doesn't just have to stay there. And so that's what's helped me stay connected to like me and my values and what I was raised on at the farm because I also kind of realized after my grandpa passed away that his love for agriculture and like growing people's food fueled some of my values and like the aspects that I really loved about Italy and what it brought to the table because they cherish family time and they really appreciate like the food that is grown for them and the food that's prepared for them. And I really hope that I can help people shift their focus to more about like the joy and connection that food can bring them, not so much counting macros or having to hustle and just like grab the quick thing and shift their mindset to it's very important to like be present with the people you love because food has always been like the center of connection and community and being present with people you love. Food has always been like the center of that. So just a little bit. I know that was a lot, but
Oh, no, I love it. Living abroad has been something that I've always wanted to do. I always tell my husband, like, just for 1 year, like, let's just all go together. There's people that would love to live in our house, and we can just go take over theirs, and just 1 year, just give me 1 year. He's so not into it.
my
So
husband is not also, so that's why he's like, "You go do you." Like, if you can figure out a way to make it happen, go do it, which is why I also stepped into the speaking space. I love to travel and I love to help others, and he really does not like traveling and meeting others. So he's like, "If you can find a way to travel and get paid and go help people and go do things, go for it. Like, if you can figure it out, that's fine with me as long as I don't have to travel with you."
my husband is very much the same, but it's because he does travel a lot for work already, and he's actually gone a lot. So when he's home, he just
I just wanna be home.
yeah, he just wants to be home. So to go back, as you were telling that story about Italy and home and seeing a lot of similarities between food, their relationship with it, with family, and here, and given the mindful eating advocate part of what you do, where do you think in sort of our Western culture, where do you think the change really needs to start? Under each person's roof, of course, there's different things that go on, and we only have so much control outside of our home anyways. So what can we as women and families do in under our own roof?
So I feel like as women, we are kind of the minds or the hearts of our home. So it kind of starts with us. And so for me, I would say try to find the small things. So for us, I try to make sure that we connect at dinner time. There is no phones at the table. We are just focusing on speaking with each other. We have also came up with during the summertime anyway, we go and have pizza on the trampoline night. And so we go have pizza on the trampoline as a family, and then it gets everyone outside. And honestly, it keeps us outside because the kids love it so much. They just think it is the funnest thing. Another thing that I really enjoy doing with them is like a cookout on the fire night. So we roasted hot dogs and s'mores and just connecting and staying outside. So they would come run and eat when they wanted to eat, and then they would go play. And also, just making sure you're still staying connected with the people you love. So, host a potluck, bring people to your house, stay connected because that's one of the things in Italy that I love the most is it wasn't just one family unit. It was uncles, aunts, friends, whoever wanted to come eat with you that night. That's what they did. And I know a lot of people just say it's Italy's magical. Yes, it is, and I will not downplay it. It is amazing, but I feel like there's certain aspects that we can bring back home here and incorporate in our own lives because that might be the only connection your kid is really getting throughout the day because of how busy our schedules are. Or also, like as a parent, we are in charge of telling our kids no on certain things. And I feel like because of societal pressures, I always did everything. When I was younger, I did every sport possible because I felt like if I don't do this sport, then if I choose to do it later, then I'm not going to be good at it and then I'm not going to get a play. But now looking back, I honestly think I would have rather just ran around outside and played and had fun than focusing on running around to all these sports activities and being able to like be home with my family than not having that connection and time with them.
Yeah. Well, I agree. Like in under our roof, dinner time is at the table, no phones. We make a point of communicating and talking. Something I started with my kids a few years ago was 2 stars and 1 wish. So 2 stars was two positive things about their day, and 1 wish was something that was in their control that they wish could have gone differently, but it had to be in their control. So no like blaming others. But it got us talking about so many different things because they could say whatever was on their mind for their 2 stars. The 1 wish was definitely a little bit harder for my youngest. She often doesn't see anything that everything is everybody else's fault, but that's okay. One thing I kind of wanted to go back to and bring up, and mostly for my own sort of selfish purposes in this conversation. Food is a huge struggle, like a relationship with food. And since we're talking about roots and agriculture and everything, I want absolutely to grow a lot of our own food. Yes, we have like pigs and chickens and all that stuff, but I feel so disconnected from growing food because I'm so disconnected from food itself that because of my relationship with food and everything. So I'm curious, what what would be sort of, I guess, the mindset shift or advice you would give someone who loves food? Like I love eating food, but there's this gap in wanting to eat it and then feeling like it's the love-hate relationship. It's a necessary evil to me. That's what it is. I'll put it in that very small sort of box, is that it's a necessary evil.
I really do like that phrase. So I really had to start taking my shoulds. So I should be eating this and trying to rewrite it in a way where it wasn't a should anymore and making it to something like not so much I want, but changing it in a way that I was being kind to myself and kind of accepting my choices. Does that make sense? And also setting boundaries for myself. So I know, like, for me, what really fueled my shame and guilt and my worth was all these societal pressures. because another little side note on me was I was always overweight as a kid. And so I always had this bubbly, outgoing personality, and everyone said that I needed to shrink or I was too loud or too much. And I think I took that internally and decided that I wasn't worth fueling anymore. And so that's kind of what the shame and guilt and not feeling worthy is what really fueled my eating disorder. And where I feel like a lot of women are at is we might come out of that and it might not end up in an eating disorder, but it definitely ends up or turns into disordered eating, which I know there is always a time and a place for macros and counting. Yes, I went through all of that. It really depends on your goals. And if you want to go prove to yourself that you can get a specific physique, that is great. And I'm so proud of you. But for me, I had to let it go. I had to let go of those expectations because it was eating me alive and it wasn't keeping me present and grounded with my family. I was focusing on what should I be eating next? Is this the right amount? And I didn't want that to move on to my girls. I didn't want them to have the same story that I had of I'm not worthy of eating this or it's not okay to eat this. And so taking those I should be doing this and changing it to a way or wording it in a way to be kind to myself has really made a huge difference for me.
It's so hard in the moment. Like I can relate to all of that. Same thing when I was younger. I hit an age and I went from being like a very petite little girl to being like the bigger girl in the class and towering over boys and being stronger than everybody. And I was often too loud, too much, like all those things. Definitely internalized it. I was bigger than my brother. My brother is still so thin. So definitely, and then there's the comparisons of other siblings and the whole, we could get into a whole different topic about that. But when I'm being the heart of the home and having this love-hate relationship with food, now I find my shame and guilt is around being that person responsible for their well-being as well. So I know that I have work to do for myself because I too don't want to pass anything on to them. And in some ways, I wonder if I'm almost overcompensating as well. So I have to like check myself every once in a while. Like, are you bringing up this topic around the kids because you're overcompensating for what's going on? Like for you right now. And I like even in the last couple days, it's definitely been something. I don't know if it's a season change and just like being indoors more. And yeah.
Well, so for me, I also still struggle with that because I this journey is never ending. Every time we've had children, every time your body changes, our journey with food is and our healing journey with food is never over. It will never be over. I've went through 4 pregnancies. Every pregnancy is different. Every postpartum is different. My body looked different every time. And as I age, my face and my body is going to change. And so the sooner we can find that balance and let certain things go, it's going to make all the difference as we get older. So I know for me right now, this time of year is so busy. You're so anxious all the time, or at least for me, I am, because we have so much going on. We're seeing so many people. So you're absorbing all this information from everyone else and getting disconnected from ourselves. And so I know this time of year is also all about sweets and sugar and all these delectable dishes. And a lot of women are scared to go to those type of events because of those things. And that's where I've kind of learned you have to set boundaries for yourself before you go to those events so that you can better handle things. And that if somebody says something negative in front of you or your kids, it is okay to walk away, which I know we're not taught to. But like I am very bad at responding to something, especially if it's negative right off the fly. Like I'm just like, did they really just say that? And so I have found that it's either best to just pause and reflect for myself for a minute or walk away because that's just what I have to do for myself. And so I know for me, like we just had Halloween. I love Halloween and the kids love candy, but I know it's so hard to find that like, oh my gosh, my kid just ate 10 pieces of candy. They're like, but and then you go back into that diet culture thing. Sugar is so bad for you. They're gonna they're gonna gain so much weight from eating that candy. Like those things do cross your mind. But that's where kind of what you were saying, you need to reflect and be like, okay, is this just my insecurities coming out? And I know like the holiday season, there's so many foods that we got told or labeled as danger foods. And if they're full fat and aren't reduced fat, then we're gonna get fat. There's just so many things that we just need to be conscious of, which I don't want it to be overwhelming either. Coming from someone that has ADHD, all of these food rules are overwhelming, but that's where you just have to find a few small things that are tangible that you can apply to things so that you can move forward and not make it overwhelming.
Definitely. I agree, and I think the pendulum swung so far for me in one direction, and then it was like it had to swing so far the other direction for me to kinda get sort of in that space of, I wouldn't say balance, but feeling a little bit more in control of everything. And I'm only just, I would say, starting to experiment more with recipes and everything. Not to go on like a whole different topic, but I think it was yesterday morning. There's this old cookbook from the other side of Canada. So I'm in Canada on the western side. This cookbook from the eastern side of Canada from a place called Nova Scotia. And this cookbook is filled with so many different recipes from like the late 1800s that it was so interesting to see and read how everyone ate back then and how things changed over time. Like sweetbreads, everything had fat, everything had sugar, everything had protein, like all those macros were just part of everybody's diet. And it seemed, although there was lots of issues with what was available, but it just was made. But they also were out and about working really hard too. And I'm reading these little blurbs. The men were out tilling and farming and hunting, and the women were inside also working really hard, whether it was laundry or whatever, cleaning. I mean, things were so different back then. But it got me to start to think about how little movement there is in our day to day. And that's another piece. I'm trying to weave this back in. That's another piece to where my brain starts to go when I worry about diet. It's also because of the movement piece of it. It's okay. I'm seeing my kids sit around more. I'm sitting around more. I'm seeing they're modeling what I'm doing. So it's been this less overwhelming now, but at one point it was really overwhelming to feel like I had to make most of the changes to then it trickle down. But then one day I was like, you know what? That's actually one of the biggest flexes that I could have as a mom is to just be that role model.
So, one, I was listening to a podcast and I think it was referencing something else, but I kind of applied it to like my food journey. And this is more like a generational thing, which I don't think a lot of my stuff stemmed from generation. Like, I think some of it did, but not all of it. But it's called the generational drip. And so it talks about how like certain emotional patterns drip down generation to generation and like it takes one generation to like stop that so that the drip is different for the next generation. And so, like, that to me is kind of my peace of mind in a way of I can't control all of my kids' habits. There is no way. There is too much outside things that could sway their mind or change them. But if I can do certain things during the day to show them that it is benefiting me in certain ways, then maybe the drip can be different for the next generation.
I love that. That's it. It's true. And that's the thing is that was the biggest, I think, mental hurdle that I had was to just understand that, well, yes, I am an influence in their lives. I'm not the only influence in their lives. So as long as I'm just working on me and what I have control of for myself, my relationship with food and everything, that's the most important piece that I could then influence them on. Like one day, I said to my daughter, like, I'm going to go for a walk. Like they're at an age now where I can start doing things. Whereas that was the other piece of it was there was a lot of inactivity. And unless they came with me, I also couldn't really do these things. So I'm in a different stage now and I'm trying really hard to get that, that sort of action taking of like, yeah, it's okay, Megan. You can leave. Like, you can go. You can do that thing. But even just telling my daughter, I'm going to go for a walk. And it was, oh, yeah, you've actually been going for a lot of walks. That's really good. So, things that we don't think our children pick up on or notice, they really do. And that's, I think, what matters the most.
So I am a big walker myself. I used to be addicted to working out, or that was part of my eating disorder or just disordered mind thinking. And I think I was trying to run away from my problems and my thoughts of what was going on at the time. And so now I really focus on joyful movement. And so if and I love walks. I love going outside and watching the sunset. So, like, that is my favorite time to go out. And just like you said, just saying I'm going for a walk, honestly, most of the time, I would say 2, if not 3 out of my 4 kids end up going on the walk with me. And most of the time, they end up doing sprints between the poles on the road. So good for them. But I just have not been a runner. Like, it doesn't bring me joy. I walk to process what's going on during the day, and it just makes me feel so much better and like I accomplished something. And it's kind of like my one thing for me, I would say. And so, like, focusing or like shifting exercise from something you have to do or you should do to something that brings you joy and that benefits you, I think also makes all the difference because I also really struggled with I should be going and lifting weights because it's good for XYZ, which I think going into the degree program I did for a while, it fueled my habits in a bad way because I was learning all of these things about how food can hurt your health. And that's where when I got out of school, I felt so lost because I didn't agree with everything that I was taught, or like I took it a different perspective. So I feel food in a very emotional way, which I feel like we've always gotten told is bad. Like we have so now we're allowed to feel our feelings about everything else that is going on in our lives, but we're not allowed to feel our feelings around food. Okay, got it. And so like that's one thing I took away from school is like it's okay to feel your feelings around food or about food and like just accepting, hey, I feel this certain way kinda it takes you in a step in the right direction. It doesn't happen all overnight, but, like, that's another step or another thing you can do to move forward in your journey is just being kind to yourself and accepting and acknowledging that you have those feelings because, like I said, I feel like we are told, "Feel your feelings, show everyone what's going on," but I still feel on, like, the food aspect of things, we are still told that we shouldn't feel feelings about food or just enjoying food. And so, like, I really resonate with the older recipes. Like, I've also questioned that because coming from a girl that was learning all these things in school about how whatever is bad for you, now we cook with butter. all the time instead of all these other substitute stuff. And I, for a long time, even growing up in agriculture, I went to oat milk and almond milk because it was less calories and less fat and not as much protein. But now I'm embracing the full fat milk train. And so, like, I don't know, there's those things that, like, you just come to realize later that you're like, okay, that wasn't the best thing for me. And now I just laugh about it. I'm like, especially going over to like Starbucks or something, I was like, if there's like an oat milk drink that's oat milk holiday drink or whatever, I'm like, can I actually have cow's milk with that?
And full fat. Please.
Yeah, because in all honesty, it's gonna keep you fuller longer. It's gonna fuel your body in different ways. And as women, we need fat to help our hormones and make ourselves feel better. And I feel like back years ago, they didn't have something telling them what the nutrition content of this food was. It was just how it made them feel. And if it didn't make them feel good, they probably didn't eat it again. And so like just coming back to ourselves and listening to ourselves and like being grounded and like rooted in what our values and belief systems are and how our body feels is probably what they went off of, not, oh, this stick of butter is this amount of calories and has this much fat, and that's bad for me. Know that whatever I just ate that had butter on it made me feel good, so I'm going to keep eating that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that's just it. I think going back into intuitive eating really has helped me a lot in my own journey. And like I said, the pendulum has swung one far way of like overindulging for sure in a lot of things. But I also now understand, okay, that's not where I want to be either. And so setting boundaries for ourselves, I think, like you said, and just having that talk with ourselves about how we're feeling about the food and everything, that really matters a lot. And it matters at the dinner table and it matters with our kids as well, because like they do pick up on those sorts of things.
Mom's not eating this certain food. Why is she not eating that certain food? Like they notice those things. Or like I'll never forget it. My oldest, I think he was around 4, he looked at me and he said, "Mom, why do you never sit at the table and eat with us?" And like that's where my disordered eating was showing. And like I think that's where I just was like, oh, but it was like one of those moments that like I couldn't react or like I didn't know how to react at the time. But like thinking back, I was like, I don't even know what I would have said anyway. Another thing I wanted to ask you, which if it is too vulnerable, you can tell me, but when you were on the one side of the pendulum and overindulging, was it because you felt like you were unworthy in some way, shape, or form? Or I guess a mix of unworthiness, shame, guilt? Or was there like something that happened or triggered inside of you that kind of fueled that unworthiness? Not in it doesn't mean it's the same way as mine, but I don't know how to word it.
Oh, totally, for sure. Like I have had disordered eating all my life, and that's the other thing is when I was younger, I did have an eating disorder, which then just turned into disordered eating. Okay, so no, I actually started putting food into my body after not putting food into my body for a while, and so that's the other thing is I learned at a young age that looking a certain way, because like I said, I was bigger all my life. So then I was smaller. The one time that I was smaller and I got complimented, I was told I looked great and oh my gosh, and all this stuff. So then it became this game of keep up.
And approval. It was everyone's
Yeah.
approval of how before there was something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Because that is literally what happened to me as well. I think I fed off of I was getting everyone's approval now. I guess I got everyone's approval before in a different way because everybody's like, "We love your personality. You're so bubbly and you're so outgoing. You just don't look a certain way."
Exactly. And when you're starting to get approval and you're at a certain age, like I don't know, 12, 13, 14, or something like that, that's a very vulnerable age to be at. That's when the hormones are raging for everybody all the time. You start to look at things differently. And yeah, so I did struggle for a while, but I knew at the same time, like intuitively, that this was not a healthy way. Like something did have to change. I didn't want to be hospitalized. I didn't want to live that kind of life. I liked living.
Or missing
Um,
out on memories with people you love. That was the
yeah,
biggest thing for me now looking back. 12 years, I wish that I could have told myself it wasn't worth it. Looking a certain way was not worth missing out on those memories that I'll never get back. Like,
for sure.
I wouldn't go to pizza parties with my friends for, like, sporting events because if I was around pizza, I'd lose control per se. And I
Mm-hmm.
wish I could also go tell my younger self that we're not just we aren't just what we are in the mirror. We're a helpful voice for our friends, where people enjoy our laughter. There's so much more to ourselves than what's in the mirror. And I wish that like younger girls knew that because I feel like even on social media with everyone posting, which so my time era where I was at when I was younger, we still had the flip phones and the internet wasn't really that big yet. And so it was around junior high when smartphones came out for me. And so, like, a whole new era, and parents didn't know how to regulate things, and it was, like, a whole new learning experience where now things have been out for so long, but then there's so many new things. So, like, TikTok. I see all these younger girls posting videos and things, and I know for me, if I had that when I was younger, I don't know how I would handle that because you're seeing all these girls looking a certain way, and if they don't look a certain way, I know, like, the comparison game would have came out.
Mhm.
And so I feel like that is, like, a whole new struggle for parents now, and I feel for them and, like, finding a way to navigate that because it's different than when even I or the generation before that was younger. Like, it's a whole new entity in itself, and, like, I know for me, I have to get off of social media, but it is so hard to, like, teach a younger kid social media is a good thing because it gives you connection to people you wouldn't have met. But at the same time, it's also very unhealthy for you because it feeds into the shame and guilt or comparison that you're feeling to others. And like, so you always feel like you're always absorbing information and it's like disconnecting yourself from like how you feel and like your values and how you want things to be.
Exactly. And that's going back to also the whole idea of we as parents only have so much influence. And in this day and age of the online life living, there is so much influence. And we don't always like my oldest is 11 and and every child is different, but did notice patterns in her that were concerning to me about being on social my kids don't have any apps like that, but YouTube is very accessible. Or even CapCut. I don't know if you're familiar with CapCut.
Yep.
So she was making videos, funny videos, but then I thought it was similar to Canva, but then when I really looked at it, which I wish I looked at it way sooner, I realized it's not appropriate. There are templates and things that aren't appropriate. And I'm like, okay, enough of that. But then even, then it was YouTube and I would watch some of the things and I'm just like, no, no, like it wasn't drastic things, but I could tell that her personality and her maturity level um, didn't match. It wasn't ready for seeing what she was viewing. It wasn't ready to process or even have the ability to critically think and discern from reality and fantasy. And I think that's a whole other sort of ball game with dealing with relationship with food. I do try to follow people on social media that are enjoying their food and it's not a full on restricted diet and just watching their macros and then showing transformation photos and stuff like that because it doesn't help me. And I've realized that. So I try to watch and follow people that are doing more intuitive eating and enjoying life.
And
And
embracing themselves. Like,
yes,
that was the hardest thing for me is like embracing my body after every baby because for me, I just was not one of those girls that I lost all the baby weight. And I know I compared my journey to a lot of other moms that were like pregnant when I was pregnant and for them, it came all off. For me, it did not. But my body just changed. But like learning to accept that is just so hard because we're told, oh, well, once you have a baby, if you work out hard enough and you eat the right way, it just comes off. Or when you're breastfeeding, it's just going to burn off.
it was the opposite for me. Complete opposite. I breastfed both my kids, complete opposite. I gained weight. And yeah, well, and that's the thing. We do need to accept where we're at. We do need to understand that we have genetics in our system that play a huge, huge part in every part of our aging process. And that includes our external physique. That includes everything on the inside, the organs, like how everything ages. And those are things that we have no control over. And yet, I think the frustrating part for me, and this is more for my own stuff that I have to work through, is I wish that it was more acknowledged. I wish that society would understand, okay, like there's so much out of our control. I look at even like my grandma who walked everywhere. She didn't have the biggest appetite or eat a lot of food, but just naturally, she was just a bigger woman. And I look at myself and I think about my body and I think about her, and I'm just like, you know what? At the same time, she just loved her life. She woke up every day. She didn't worry about anything. She just, she did her thing. She
She
enjoyed her.
wasn't she didn't have to compare herself to anyone else because there's no one else to compare herself to.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
now we have all of these things to compare ourselves to, and we should be doing this, we should be doing that. If we do this, this will happen. And sometimes that's not what happens. And like for me, like I said, the biggest thing when it came to that is I just had to, because after my third baby, I still worked out as hard as I possibly could. I counted macros, but I think she was about a year old when I was like, this is enough. Like, I want to be present with my kids. I wanna be able to go sit at the dinner table and just serve my food onto my plate. I don't wanna have to be over at the counter measuring things and restricting myself and them seeing that, and it didn't make me any less worthy. I just needed to finally accept that, like, there were values that I wanted to give my children and that I followed and that I valued, and I just need to let stuff go so that I could follow those values and what I wanted for not only for them, but for me too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's such an important piece to bring it back to is what really are the values? Like what are the values that we share with our family, for ourselves, but with our children? And if we do have spouses that are under the same roof, what are those values? And I know for me, like my husband and I, we do share a lot of the same values, but we do also really different. And, he's a very saucy guy. I don't like sauces so much. But the value of sitting down as a family, that has to come out above everything else to me. And that's because that's my value for sure. Obviously, health, saying it in a more generic way. Yes, overall health is good. And with that being said, mental health is just as important as physical health. And I feel like if mentally we are feeling healthy, a lot of everything else will kind of fall into place as well.
No, I completely agree with that because sometimes you can look very healthy on the outside, but you might not be healthy on the inside, or vice versa. You might be really unhealthy on the inside and it might be reflecting on the outside. Like, and that's where also I struggle with people not being understanding of what other people are going through and judging them. So for me, when I had my eating disorder, it had gone to a certain point where around school, people said I was doing drugs. Like, they weren't addressing the fact that I had an eating disorder. They were going around saying I was doing drugs instead of seeing I literally skipped school lunches for months and no one noticed. No one None of my friends that I had had for years even questioned me, which I don't know. At that point, I feel like I would have told them probably to screw off because I wasn't
Yeah.
ready to hear it. I had so many internal battles that I had going on myself that I don't think I would have been ready to accept any of the messages from outside people. But at the same time, them saying I was doing drugs made it so much worse and fed into what I had going on inside. And what I had going on inside was reflecting to the outside. And that's just how my body kept me safe at that time. And so, yeah, getting older and looking back, it just, it's taken a lot of self reflection. And I hope that, like, through my speaking engagements and things like that, I can hopefully help people reflect back and like find those pivoting points that they can reflect back on and just be like, "This is what changed. Like, this is
Mm,
what
mhm.
needs to be different."
Yeah. I actually had a similar but different experience. I was working, so it was out of high school, but some of the other women that I worked with decided to say that I was on drugs, that I must be on drugs. Because and that's the thing with disordered eating, right? It can come, it can go, it can show up in one way or another, but this was obviously a part, a few years of my life where eating less was more prominent in my disordered eating. And yeah, so same thing. I was like, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, what? Like, how about you just come to me and have like a conversation and say, hey, we've been noticing some things and we're concerned. You don't even have to say it's about a person's weight. You don't have to share that you're noticing that they're losing it or gaining weight. You can just care about them enough to say that you're noticing that there's some changes and you're wondering if there's any way that you can help. Changes in attitude, whatever, whatever.
Well, and I feel like that is also something important. So, I feel like so I know, like, my mom had said things to me, but I was also 16 and, whatever your mom says, you're doing the opposite. So, looking back, I honestly feel like if someone that I respected enough would have said something to me like that would have made me aware. So, like,
Mm,
aware
mhm.
and acknowledging, and, like, maybe that would have turned the tables a little bit sooner for me in my brain before things got even worse. But no one did. And I know for me in my small little town at that point, eating disorders were kind of like just seeping through the surface at that point. Like, they weren't really talked about or known about. Like, I guess they were probably known about, but nobody in our area talked about it. And so I know there was a few girls in my high school that had approached me that were in younger grades when I was in older grades, that I think they were asking me questions because I think they were struggling too. And they were looking for somebody to talk to. And I feel like I probably handled it in a very unhealthy way because I probably fed into whatever they had going on instead of because I wasn't in a healthy place.
Well,
I
that's just
wasn't in
it.
a healthy place to
Yeah,
help others at that point. And so now it hurts my heart that I didn't handle it better, but I know that like I wasn't in a healthy place and like I can only meet them in a place where I'm at, and I was in a bad place. So how I was going to respond was coming from a different place than how I would respond now.
for sure. And just, yeah, talking to your younger self, it wasn't your responsibility to help them, right? Like you were a child yourself going through your own stuff. And that's just it. And that's what I think for me too is I really didn't have a lot of help either. It was a very interesting time in my life, but kind of what you said, if there was somebody that you connected with and somebody that you yourself felt was an important person in your life, whether it's mother or somebody else, that's probably the only person you might listen to or even acknowledge that they're coming from a good place that might um because even like yeah looking back on everything for me, I think that's the only thing that changed for me was that one person kind of was like, I think you need to eat more dinner. Let's make you something that you'll really enjoy. Like she did it in a really, really super casual way. It didn't make me feel bad. Um,
Feeling the shame and guilt and the
just made me,
unworthiness you already felt, which is good. She came from a place that didn't feed into it, and I feel like that is,
yeah,
like, the most important thing.
yeah. But even for me, I don't know that I would ever be able to help somebody going through something similar. Like it's such a subject that is so hard to navigate because it's such a personal individual. I don't know.
No,
It's
it
such
is
an
very individualized. Everyone is so different on how they handle things, but that's where I kinda have some workshops in mind to, like, draw out it's more of calling to individuals to work on things and drawing out what each individual can work on, not like me forcing
Mhm.
my thoughts and like what happened to me onto them. It's drawing some of their thoughts and feelings out on paper to hopefully shift their mindset in a way that helps them in the long run.
I love that. I think that is such a great idea. 'Cause you just made me think about something that I thought of a few years ago. I thought about, and I still kind of want to do it, but I thought about this type of workshop where women gather and we get these like big sections of paper, like for our height and everything, and we outline ourselves and outline our bodies. And like one half is kind of what we are believing of what anything that's going on in the moment, but then the other half is all of the blossoming, everything that we've done over the years to bring us to a place of feeling worthy and all the reasons why we are worthy. And it outweighs everything on the other side, if that makes sense. I kind of like did this funny sketch in a book when I came up with the idea, and it just felt almost like even just coming up with the idea was very therapeutic, like cathartic, I guess it would be the word to use in the
Well,
moment.
because I feel like in entrepreneurship, like, so, like, starting your business or, like, on your journey and, like, moving forward. So, like, for me, doing the type of work I am doing has brought some of my past feelings out, but it's also helped me reflect on some of the very icky stuff that I had, like, shoved down deep and left on a shelf thinking I would never bring it back out, but it's almost helped me heal. And that's one of the beautiful things about entrepreneurship is honestly a lot of what you're doing, there is some reason you're doing it. So it's a very healing roller coaster, lots of
So true.
lots of looking at yourself and why you're feeling a certain way, just like a very big growth journey is all I have to say.
It's true. It's so true. I feel like we've chatted so much. I just want to make sure that I'm connecting with some of the important topics for you as well. So some of them which we have talked about is navigating a healthy relationship with food and breaking free from diet culture. Diet culture and even those two words, separate or together, are very like buzzy words. But I think it is true. Diet culture has played a huge role in everyone's individual relationship with food, whether it's the macro counting, whether it's exercising, whether it's any part of diet culture. Is there any sort of tips that you have for people to break free from some of that? What would be sort of the first step for people to break free?
So for me personally, I had to start looking at how I was feeling after certain things because I feel like I'm not, I know like intuitive eating for me is a hard word in some ways because everybody's like, well, if you're intuitive eating, you're telling me I can go eat that whole pizza and blah, 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 blah.
I
And I'm
didn't
like,
just roll my eyes.
yes, but no, that's not what, to
But I
me,
know what you mean. I totally know what you mean because I have these internal conversations.
but that's so true. But for me, when you start like one healthy habit, I'm not saying go eat the whole pizza. I'm saying like if you really want some pizza, go have your pizza. But I also like enjoy a salad with it. Like they complement each other really well. And just like listening to yourself and not, oh, I just ate a whole pizza. Or like if you did eat the whole pizza, just forgive yourself for it and move on.
Mhm,
There is
mhm.
just so much. I feel like we are told that we should not feel the feelings. Like I said earlier, we should not feel the feelings that we feel around food. I know for me, I had certain trigger foods or certain foods that I would be like, that is a big no for me. A lot of it was like ice cream, pizza, peanut butter, because they were like all high in fat. I now enjoy those on a weekly basis. But guess what? I don't feel bad about it because it is bringing me joy. We only have one life to live. And if those things bring you joy, go ahead and eat it. Just make sure, like, it's about balance, which I even have a hard time with balance because everybody, I feel like you're expected to eat the salad. If you don't want to eat a salad with pizza, that's fine. But like, if that's what makes you feel better, or like, just listen to your body. Like, your body is so individualized on your own needs. Like, you just need, I feel like we get so disconnected because of social media and all these outside things speaking to us that we just don't listen to ourselves and be like, that pizza was really good, but I don't need any more for right now. Or like when we have one healthy habit, other habits other habits that bring us joy will follow. So, like going for your joyful movement walk or like going outside and just getting some fresh air. Like, if you're doing those things to set yourself up for a better day, you're more likely to probably make better choices.
It's all connected for sure. And that's the thing. I know like sleep is very important. When I don't get enough sleep, oftentimes I'm usually drinking more coffee, which fills me up in a different way. But then by the afternoon, after only having coffee all morning, I'm like, oh my God, I need more energy. And okay, what do? Your body thinks it needs a quick fix. And then you start to go for certain foods that might give that to you. And that's where taking time, going for walks and getting sleep, and it's all connected.
And acknowledging your thoughts, acknowledging how you're feeling before
Mhm.
you're approaching certain things. Like, I know we feel like we have all these things to do in a day, but that small things only take a few seconds and it's going to set you up for better day overall.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that goes to also celebrating small wins and recognizing that small milestones and progress is progress. So if you did get out for that walk, that's a win. If you like whatever that looks like for each individual person.
Yes, I completely agree with that.
Another one that I just want to quickly talk about too is sense of community and staying connected to community. So connection helps us to remember that we're not alone. I think, talking about eating disorders, It's been a hard one for me for sure because I don't like to admit that I still have disordered eating and in the last few years. So this is the whole other side of social media, right? Sometimes I'm afraid to even see anything that relates to disordered eating, even if it's someone trying to talk about it in a way of bringing awareness. I'm like, I freeze and I'm like, which way is this going to take me? Is this going to trigger it for me where I'm going to start to actually bring back some more disordered eating habits, or am I going to feel like I'm not alone? So I'm bringing this up in the sense of like connecting with people that are like minded, but also understanding where we need to sometimes bring up boundaries again.
So I do some group coaching, and I feel like like you said before, everybody's journey is so individualized. But I also feel like with groups or finding a community that you like, there is some individual pieces, even though not the full story will connect and resonate with you, there might be a piece in there that you pull out that you're like, yes, that speaks to me. And you might walk away with something that helps you heal. And honestly, for me, even with like group coaching, maybe you're just having a really bad day, mentally, physically, whatever. You have the power to set a boundary for yourself and be like, I don't have to go to my group coaching call today. I I am too absorbing too much information and it's just not the time for me right now. But you have the power to set that boundary. Even if you're seeking help and seeking community, I feel like if you're meeting people that are on the same spectrum or same season in their journey, I feel like they're going to understand. They're going to understand why you're struggling. They're going to understand why you're setting boundaries. And I think that's what makes community beautiful when you find the right one for you.
I love that so much. I really do. It just, I think like a whole different, I see a different light around it all. Like I see it now. It's not like this heavy feeling. It's a lighter feeling of like, yes, okay, that does make sense. And also, why didn't I think about that before? Why didn't I think about it like that in that way? Because that makes sense. Of course, we can set boundaries and we can choose to acknowledge those things. But I think that's the most important part is acknowledging what's going on. Even if it's okay, I have this feeling that today, having any conversations around disordered eating, eating disorders, food in general is going to bring this about for me or this feeling and just setting your boundaries as you need to and change our boundaries for that day if we want to. Like right before a group coaching call comes up, and we're like, actually, no, today I need this call. Hop on, do the thing, be part of it. Yeah, I think that we do have so much choice. And sometimes I think we just forget that we have as many
I
choices
feel
as
like it's
we
because we
do,
always got told what we had to do.
right?
But it's fine. It's fine. But I feel like as adults, we struggle with that still. Like we're like, oh wait, I'm in charge of myself. I can tell people no. That's a weird feeling.
So novel, yet so available at the same time. I think we've mostly talked about a lot of things that were important to you to bring up. Is there anything that you want to touch on a little bit more or have a more in depth conversation about?
I think we have some really good points here, and I think the conversation went really well. So
Thank you so much, Courtney, for being on the podcast today. It was such a pleasure. There was something, I don't know, there was something about you from the moment that your name came across that I felt like you were the person that I was going to open up to that little bit more about disordered eating and eating disorders. I think it is such an important thing to talk about. I think that being women, being mothers, being entrepreneurs, there's so many things that we don't acknowledge. We tend to put aside for the what we think is the betterment of our families, but it's really not because we do really have to take care of ourselves. Um,
and sometimes you have to invent or like look into your past to find things to better your future. And I know like for me, I made a post the other day and there was some feelings in there that I haven't felt in a long time. And I was like, woof, that's kind of heavy. But the next day, I honestly felt so much better. Like it almost felt like a little bit of a weight was lifted off of me. And that's where I feel on like entrepreneurship is beautiful in some ways because it is a lot of like a self-discovery, self-growth journey too when you're going through it, especially if you're in it for things that are super close to you. So like using my story to help other people, I'm still like unpacking my own stuff to better other people too and like using my own healing mechanisms to make myself feel better and but that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, it is. And as I understand more now, since having so many episodes out and talking with so many different people, there is patterns, but there and it's all about sharing our story. And each person has a different perspective. And because of that, something will land differently with each different person that's out there. Talking about being an entrepreneur, talking about our dreams and going after things, but also understanding that there's going to be things that are out of our control and setting boundaries and everything. It's all self-love. It's all from a place of kind of rewriting our own stories and bringing those, accepting who we are now at the same time.
Yes, and some of our past baggage or things that we stuffed away deep down in in the drawer and was like, okay, bye.
Right? Well, exactly. And I could probably go into it so much deeper, but that's exactly it. And that's part of the eating disorder topic for me. That is definitely something that I shoved away. I was like, no, I totally got this under control and I'm not going to bring it into my daughter's lives and it's going to be done and we're not going to talk about it. And I'm going to be this type of mother and I'm going to take care of things this way. But that's the thing. It is dripping out and I'm noticing it come out a little bit more and a little bit
And
more.
you can choose if it's in a healthy or unhealthy way, depending on how you want to handle it.
Yes, that's the acknowledgement to make, right? And that's the thing. So for me, being a little bit more open today with you is my way of choosing to do it in a more healthy way rather than keeping it stuffed in and then showing up at the dinner table with the unhealthy way. So that's the thing. I hope that, well, I know our listeners from this episode will have so many different things to take away from it. There's lots of different tips embedded and woven throughout our conversation. So thank you so much, Kourtney, for being here today. Thank you for being on the podcast. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yes, you too, Megan.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Anchor Your Dreams. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. A big thank you to our incredible guest for sharing their wisdom and insights. If you resonated with today's episode and want to explore more about turning your dreams into reality, be sure to subscribe to the podcast. We have a lineup of amazing guests and valuable content coming your way. Don't forget to connect with us on social media. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Share your thoughts, insights, and your own journey using the hashtag #AnchorYourDreams. Head over to our website at meganmcquillan.com in the podcast section, where you'll find the show notes, resources, and information about upcoming episodes. Before we wrap up, I want to express my gratitude to each and every one of you. Your support means the world to me, and I'm thrilled to be on this journey with you. Remember, anchored dreams become goals. Anchored goals become results. Until next time, dream big and stay anchored.